Now let's begin to get to know your guitar a little bit. We'll start with learning the terminology just for the basic parts of the guitar, because these are words we're going to be tossing around in these beginning lessons, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page about what the basic parts of your guitar are called. Now, on the electric guitar and on the acoustic guitar, you'll notice that they have all those same basic parts in common. They're going to look a little bit different. So I'm going to talk you through both styles, and let's start with the electric. Let's start at this end. This part of the guitar is called the body of the guitar. This body happens to be a solid body electric guitar, which means that the body of the guitar itself is made of a solid piece of thick wood, which is what makes it really pretty heavy. So we've got the body. Then we have this long part. This is called the neck. And at the very top, just like with our human body, you've got the body, the neck, and the head, or the headstock, as it's usually called in guitar. Body, neck, headstock. Of course, you've got the strings. We all know about that. And the strings are anchored down on either end of the guitar in two places. One is right here at this end on top of the body of the guitar. This is called the bridge. The strings come from the bridge all the way up the neck to, they cross this point right here. This is called the nut. In order to help you remember the name of this odd little piece here, because we are going to be referring to it as we get into making notes, I brought a little friend, a little visual aid. You won't forget this, right? The time Lisa McCormick put a peanut on the guitar. It's called the nut. Okay. Onward. After the nut, the strings go up and each one winds around a tuning peg. Each of these is called a tuning peg, and these are the things we're going to turn when you learn to tune your guitar to make the strings higher or lower. Let's go back to the neck for a moment. The neck itself has the back end, as you can probably tell, is rounded, so it'll fit comfortably in your hand. The top part, the flat part, is called the fingerboard. The fingerboard because this is where you're going to be putting your fingers. And on the fingerboard are dots. What do you think these are called? Dots, you're right. Perfect. The dots are there simply as signposts, basically to help you keep track as you're learning to come up the neck in this direction. The dots give you kind of places to anchor your vision and say, okay, I remember that this one's at the 5th fret, this one's at the 7th fret. There's always one at the 5th fret, there's always one at the 7th fret, there's usually one at the 9th fret, and always one at the 12th fret. This guitar is a bonus dot at the 3rd fret, so take a look at your guitar and see where they are. Also notice that sometimes on the upper edge of the fingerboard here, you'll have tiny dots that correspond with these dots that you can see more easily, so you don't have to be craning over all the time to find where you're going. Let's also take a look at another feature of the fingerboard, very important feature, the frets. And we'll be spending a lot of time dealing with these as we learn to play. But first, let's just be clear on what I mean by the word frets. It's a little dicey in guitar because the word is tossed around sometimes to mean these wires, the frets, and sometimes it's used to mean the spaces in between the wires. So for our purposes, to eliminate confusion, what I want to say is that the wires themselves that go horizontally across the neck, those are fret wires. It's actually a oddly shaped kind of wire that's actually pounded into a slot in the fingerboard of the guitar. So these are fret wires. The spaces in between the wires are the frets. This is the 1st fret, the 2nd fret, the 3rd fret, etc., 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 all the way up. So we've got the strings, the fingerboard, the dots, the body, the bridge, the nut, the tuning pegs. Now let's take a look at how all that shows up in the form of an acoustic guitar. So on the acoustic guitar, let's start with the body. Now you'll notice the body here takes up a lot more space, both this way and the depth between where it hits my body and hits the rest of the room. It's got some thickness here, but it's still called the body. Then we go to the neck. And after the neck, we've got body, neck, and headstock. Okay? Coming back down to this end along the strings, which is obvious, you have the place where the strings are anchored at this end of the guitar, the bridge. Just like on the electric, it's still called the bridge, even though it looks different. This one actually looks kind of like you took a bridge and you squashed it, so it makes a little bit more sense. Coming up the neck again, don't tell me you forgot what this part is called. The nut, right. And we follow the strings all the way up. Each one attaches to a tuning peg. Again, these are what we will use to turn, to tighten and loosen the strings and to tune them. On the top of the neck, we have the fingerboard. We have the frets. We have the fret wires, and we have the spaces in between them, which is what we usually mean when we say first fret, second fret, third fret in guitar. It's these spaces, first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret. Now, this fancy guitar has very fancy dots. I don't really know what to call them, so I'm going to still call them dots because they serve exactly the same function and they are in exactly the same places on the neck as they were on the electric guitar, no difference. Okay, so I've got a third fret, which is usually kind of a bonus one. Not everybody gets that. Fifth fret is always there. Seventh fret, usually ninth fret, always 12th fret, and sometimes even beyond. And you look at the top edge of your fingerboard and you will see that usually you have little mini dots there that correspond exactly with the dots on the fingerboard. Once again, so you can see them easily from playing position without having to crane over and find them like that. So memorize the names of these basic guitar parts on your guitar because we're going to be using this terminology all the time. The body, the bridge, the strings, the neck, the fingerboard, the dots, the frets, the headstock, and the tuning pegs.